Hi friends. We are about to read the first few pages of this book called Mary Anning, The Girl Who Cracked Open the World. It's a biography of a woman named Mary Anning, and she turned out to be a pretty important person in the world of understanding fossils and paleontology. Here are the first 9 pages. Sorry, first 6 pages. Mary, Mary, where are you going? Here she is. Out of the cottage, away from her chores and down to the sea. That's where Mary was going. Over rocks slippery with seaweed slime near the crumbling cliffs of England's south coast. That's where you'd find Mary. It was a dangerous place, a wild and windy world. Falling pebbles plink-plonked off of her bonnet, but Mary didn't care. There were fossils here, ancient fish teeth and curly shells and animal bones in the rock. Curiosities, or curios, the treasure seekers called them. They were odd, dainty things to look at and ooh and ah over, and Mary's family could sell as many as she could find. Here's the next picture. But were those rock creatures alive at one time? When did they live? What did they do? Did anyone think about this? Shivering under her quilt at night, Mary thought of these things. Her feet were sore and her back ached from hours and hours hunched like a gull picking away at the rocks. But still, she thought. She wondered again and again as she closed her eyes, but the mystery of the rocks would have to wait. Mary was fast asleep. We already know some things about Mary. We already know something about the setting. One dark, stormy day, Mary sat in her father's workshop, a cozy, dusty place. It was quiet, too. No one was there except for Mary and her father, the 2 fossil finders, hard at work. Her father chipped away at rocks until the fossils appeared. Mary took the tiny pick that her father made for her and chipped away at bits of rock, too. Everything Mary knew about fossils, she learned while working with her father. On this page, there's an actual photograph of some tools, some chisels, and a hammer. Here's the page I'm about to read. When the storm ended, Mary grabbed her basket, hammer, and chisel. She ran out of the workshop and straight to the sea. Mary knew that after a storm was the best time to search for fossils. The wind and water broke the cliffs open, and the fossils that had been buried were now exposed. Mary picked through the rocks. Soon her fingers were numb from the cold. Her skirts were muddy and wet, but Mary didn't mind. She was happy there, looking for fossils and helping her father. What does that say about Mary if she's willing to get wet and cold and tired and go out in difficult conditions just to find fossils? She sounds pretty determined to me. Here's the next page. What kind of girl spends her days like that? Shouldn't Mary be in school? The townspeople wondered and whispered these things whenever they saw Mary. Mary, they said, had always been different. Was it because she'd been struck by lightning when she was a tiny, sickly baby? There were 3 townspeople near Mary that day who were struck by lightning too. They didn't survive. Only Mary did. And look at her now, curious, stubborn, and independent. Mary did what she wanted to do. We know even more about her now. When Mary was 11, her father died. Soon after that, she stepped into his dusty workshop. It looked the same, but something had changed. Sadness hung in the air. It lurked in the shadows, and Mary couldn't bear to be there. She went down to the cliffs, noisy with seabirds and crashing waves, but it was no better there. Every fossil she found made her think of her father. So Mary stayed away from her favorite places. Those are pages 3 through 9, which help us to understand a bit more about our main character, Mary Anning. What do her words and her actions and the thoughts of the townspeople tell you about Mary so far? Feel free to listen back again if you need some more support as you work on lesson 1 about answering questions with a race response, and about 2 vocabulary words, fossil and chisel.